Welcome to My Appalachian Home. Each week we journey into the heart of Appalachia. Its stories, its music, its people, and its traditions. From the front porch to the winding back roads, I'll share the rich tapestry of life of this one-of-a-kind region that I call home. Settle in and discover the spirit of Appalachia, one story at a time. Rick Dollar here for My Appalachian Home. This is a little look into the soul of me and what makes me happy. So today I'm at the Wayne Henderson School for the Arts in Marion, Virginia, and I'm with Catherine. Catherine,
Catherine.
Say wave. Okay, good.
We're talking about my dream job.
I think that we've talked about what you guys try to accomplish here, but I want you to kind of explain that to everybody. Why do you wake up and do what you do every day?
Really, the school was founded on just Appalachian history, craft, and our job is to promote and perpetuate Appalachian culture and the traditions that are here. And one of those traditions is instrument building. I gave a tour earlier today and was explaining that when you go north towards Russell County and all of that, that was coal country.
Exactly.
So a lot of those individuals went more into the factory work and mining and different things like that. But then on this side, it was timber. So everything that revolves around Marion, Virginia and Southwest Virginia is based on furniture making, instrument making, even weaving and all of that until the factories, closed. But there is such a concentration of instrument builders in this area. It's amazing. And it all started with Albert Hash. Exactly. And we have Randall Eller that does the fiddle making workshops, and he learned directly from Albert Hash.
Wow.
And Wayne learned not everything he knows from Albert, but Albert was the one that showed him how to put a guitar together when he tried to use duct tape and the drawers out of his mom's old dresser.
I could see that.
Yeah, it did, and it fell apart. He was like 12 years old. He tells that story, and Albert was like, "No, this is how you do it." And then Randall's story of Albert is just absolutely hilarious. They were at the Hungry Mother Arts and Crafts Festival, which still goes on today. This is like our 52nd year.
Wow.
And Albert was there with a booth, and Randall was there carving. Randall did not play the fiddle, did not know how to play the fiddle, and Albert Hash came over and said, "Do you want to learn to make a fiddle?" And Randall was like, "Well, yeah," but what Albert did was brilliant. And Albert was a neighbor of Wayne's. He's over, Grayson Highlands near Rugby. And when Randall would go over, Albert would give him one piece of the fiddle to work on.
And say, "Make this."
And then he would have to bring it back. He wouldn't give him everything all at once.
Wow.
So he would come back, every week and learn. And that was over 40 years ago.
But just think though, that's like, that reminds me of my grandfather. If he needed to teach me to do something, we did it a little bit at a time.
Yep.
And I think you can take and hone that way that you do things in that respect.
And that is. And Wayne, he taught Gerald, and they worked on one brace at a time.
Wow.
And that's the way Gerald taught. When he taught, even here, they would, he would give him a brace and say, "Here, go duplicate this." and they would go over on the sander, the spindle sander, and then bring it back, and he'd look and he goes, "Well, that's okay, go make another." You know, and
we need 2 of those.
yeah, and then I mean, literally would spend an afternoon just making braces until you could get that. And the magic that we have down here in this workshop is that we have Wayne's experience.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say
Then we have Gerald's experience, and Gerald passed in 2019, but you know, we still see him around here. You know, his spirits.
What they've done in this life, though, I believe this wholeheartedly. What you do and what you leave behind stays here for somebody else.
It does.
You know?
It does. The whole spirit, and you know that it was a no-brainer to name this after Gerald.
Oh yeah.
Because Wayne is a man of few words.
Oh yeah, no doubt about that.
Anybody has any experience
Where
with
you
Wayne
going,
Henderson?
Wayne? Head on back to rugby.
Yep.
And that's all you'd get out of
That was it. And
Yeah.
so when it came time, I was hired in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
This building had just been saved from being a parking lot. And they knew that it was going to be Appalachian Heritage Schools or, you know, something like that, which is actually our 501c3 is Appalachian Heritage Schools, Inc., doing business as the
Right.
Henderson. And I knew that, you know, obviously, if this is going to be a school named after Wayne, we got to have a Lutherie and do a guitar build. And I had funding to equip the shop, but I didn't know. I didn't know
How to do this, did you?
things about a Lutherie. I could do letterpress all day long and stained glass quill, any of that, but a Lutherie, no. So getting Wayne to, you know, what do we need, Wayne? What do we want? What do you see? And he's like, oh, whatever you do is going to be fine. I'm only going to give you one workshop. And August will be number 21.
Well, there you go.
So we're doing something right.
Exactly.
But it was so tough. And then finally, you know, and you know this with the work you do, you got to change the question.
You do.
So it was like, Wayne, you know, in all the workshops and the guitar builds you've done, what was your favorite place? And why did you like that shop? You know, and he had mentioned one place, and I don't remember if it was Penland or I think it might have been, but what he liked about it, it had a swinging door between the dirty room and the clean, quiet room.
Oh, wow.
So it was like, but that was something.
Yeah.
So this is our clean, quiet room.
That's something to build on.
This is the Lutherie, and then you go through the door. It's not swinging, but you go through
But it's
there.
beautiful, though.
And that the whole other half of this building is the drum sander.
Wow.
And the resaw and the planer, and that's where they take their guitar bodies over and do the sanding and everything with the filtration system. So that was a start. So then he sent Gerald Anderson, and Don Wilson came over for the very first workshop. He sent Don, who passed a few years back too in 2020. But Gerald was the cavalry. He came over and he was so patient, and he never made me feel small for asking a question.
Oh yeah.
He was such a true teacher. Not that Wayne isn't, because Wayne, I mean, you know, it's so funny because he'll come to visit. He doesn't really do the workshops anymore, but he always drops in to see what's going on. And you know, I can only stay a minute, and then it's 3 hours later.
Exactly.
You know, and he's fitting somebody's neck and talking to him.
Classic Wayne.
But the beauty of what we do here is that you'll hear Spencer Strickland, who was our lead instructor. He took over after Gerald passed because Spencer worked with Gerald, lived with Gerald for like 3 years to learn to make mandolins and guitars, and and consequently spent a lot of time with Wayne as well.
Yeah.
So it made sense that Spencer would take over as lead, because before that, in the early classes, we had Wayne and Gerald, and then usually Lee Talbot would come, just whoever was available to come and help with that workshop.
Yeah.
And now you can hear Spencer say, well, Wayne does it this way. Here, we'll show you how to fit this neck. Wayne does it this way. Gerald did it this way. I like this way. So, when you're standing here, you hear that tradition. It doesn't get lost.
No, and it needs to stay,
It has its place within these walls, and it's just magical.
See, now, through all these people that you've mentioned, I'll have to say this, you're steering the ship. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And since 2014, looks like it's pretty successful to me. Yep. Need I say more? We can't even get this all in the frame because it's to the ceiling.
Yeah.
So many of these people have learned something useful and that fed something inside of them. We were talking a minute ago, being able to feed somebody's soul.
Yes. Yeah.
Is so important in this world.
And it's the experience.
That's right.
Some that you'll talk to will say, oh no, they just want to build a fine guitar. And it's like, no.
No, it's not it.
It's everything that comes together. It is 3 phenomenal instructors that all bring something different to the table.
Exactly.
Everybody gets along. It's family.
That's great.
And, I'm the den mother, of course. Somebody's got to be.
Somebody's got to say, "Hey, why aren't we done?"
Yeah, that's it. And it's everybody starts out the week on that Sunday when we do the introduction, and it's like everybody's strangers today, but by Friday you're family.
Exactly.
And usually by Friday, out of the 6 participants, 2 of them will be up in my office with a $1,000 deposit for the next workshop.
There you go.
Yeah, and we have never advertised. 11 years.
I don't think you're ever going to have to.
No, and we're filling 2027. Because the minute someone pulls their guitar out of the case, starts playing it, and someone says, first of all, it's a beautiful guitar because it's got the Henderson name on it, so it has to be as beautiful on the inside as it is on the outside. But it sounds phenomenal. And then they're like, man, that guitar, where did you get it? And the minute they say, I built it, bam.
There you go.
Yeah.
I went to see Vince Gill last week in Savannah, Georgia, and during the show, you know how this goes with musicians. They rotate guitars out for every song or whatever. And I kept waiting. I was sitting there, and my wife was like looking at me like, I'm watching. I'm waiting on those Hendersons to start coming through there.
Yeah.
And they did.
Yeah.
And it was just so cool. And the first time he hit that guitar, I knew it was a Henderson
you can
guitar.
Hear it.
I could have had my eyes shut.
Yeah.
And the whole thing was, when a guy like Vince Gill, he's been in the business forever. He's played for a number of different people. The Eagles, himself, one of the longest running individual acts in country music.
Wow.
And when he trusts what he does to something like that, that's all you need.
Well, we had one workshop was during the CMA Awards, and Ricky Skaggs was getting inducted. And Wayne was like, man, I'm gonna miss that. And I said, no, you won't miss it. So upstairs on the second floor, we have an auditorium that Wayne was completely unaware of because he had no, So
Did you make sure that he was unaware? He was unaware.
We had pizza and beer. Brought everybody from the workshop up there, lowered the big screen, and Ricky Skaggs comes out on stage playing his Henderson guitar. And everybody, and I was like, man, I couldn't have planned.
You couldn't have made that better.
Marketing any better. Talk about brand.
I went to see the Eagles about 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, in Charlotte, North Carolina. My wife's a huge fan, so this was her Christmas present. So we get there, and we go in. She goes over here and is looking at something else and goes to the restroom. I'm standing there just enjoying a nice cold adult beverage, and it hits me. I bet Wayne's here. I had heard through the grapevine that Wayne was going to be there delivering some guitars. So I didn't say anything, but I stood there and man, I was just antsy. Hello? I said, hey man, what are you doing? He said, just hanging around. And then I caught sight of a little guy walking through there with a guitar case on his back. And I said, I got you. So I walked up to him, and I was still talking to him on the phone. And I said, what are you doing here? And he went, what are you doing here? And then the stories just came out of it. Talking about eating lunch with these guys, bringing Vince's guitars to him, this and that and the other. But it was one of the coolest things. It's like, I don't know if it's God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, I don't care. Something put that in my noggin. And I thought, I got to find Wayne Henderson. And I did.
He's there. He's around.
So it's just amazing to me, though, how he has, he's like a magnet to greatness. There's people that come to
he's
Wayne.
He's just so sweet.
I know.
And it after 14 years, I still get goosebumps when he says my name. I'm like, he knows my name. It's I only run the school, but you're like, he knows my name.
I don't know how many times I've told that Wayne Henderson story, but I think everybody should have at least one.
Oh my God, I've got some good Wayne Henderson stories.
Now, we know all about the guitars and how all this has come to be, but what else do you have here? I know you said something about
letterpress,
which is a lost art.
So it is a lost art.
Yeah, that's something that you just don't see anymore.
And so it's a full shop. We don't have a Vandercook like Hatch does, but most of ours is what we have are what are called proof presses.
Right.
And but a vast collection of wood type, metal type. We've got a Chandler and Price, which is your old-fashioned Xerox from the late 1800s. And we're refurbishing a Chandler and Price C&P that is a treadle.
Oh, yeah.
So that was found in a barn in Troutdale.
Holy crap.
Along with 2 cases of type that whenever I call the town guys from the town of Marion, they know it's going to involve heavy lifting. So it's like, we got to go over to this barn in the middle of nowhere and pick up this letterpress. So we have that.
So you do that.
And then we have pottery.
Wow.
So,
okay,
and then
cool.
we have a quilt shop, or a quilting room, but it's like a full quilt shop up there. We have a ton of fabric, all quality fabric. Same thing with this workshop with the guitar. The first time we had the guitar build, Gerald and Don and Wayne all had to bring their shop here because we didn't have anything. I didn't have the funding or
Yeah.
anything. So they were unpacking their side benders and, you know, everything they needed, all the tools, everything to build a guitar came from the 3 shops.
Wow.
So I vowed, that was my goal, was to create a Lutherie that all Wayne would have to do is park his car, come in, and he had everything here he needed to build a guitar, including the wood.
Wow.
And we have that. So that was the same goal with quilting.
Yeah.
You just walk in and everything you would need to build a quilt, create a
Now,
quilt is
do you
there.
know people that build quilts that gave you this information, or did you have to bring people in, or how did that work?
I have, they call me the Swiss Army knife.
Well, that was probably going to be my next term. But
And the joke is that we get visitors from all over, really all over the world now.
Yeah.
And they'll come in and they're like, we would love to have this in our community. We need a Henderson. And everybody says, no, you need a Catherine. Because, you know, and you know, if I didn't know how to do something, I learned.
Yeah.
And I've built a guitar
That's good.
here. I've done that.
Check.
Could not do it on my own, but I can talk about building a guitar,
I wouldn't
and
know where
I
to
know
start,
what it is.
man. I mean, I've been
So,
around guitars my whole life, but I wouldn't know how to, you know what
start
I'm
in the
saying?
wood room.
Exactly. And then the sanding and all
you
that
know,
stuff.
and then quilting, even though when I grew up, my grandmother was a seamstress
Yeah.
and my grandfather was a tailor and they owned a dry cleaning shop. By the time I was old enough to learn, she was too old to teach and arthritic, so I never learned to sew. And my mom hated to sew because she grew up with all handmade clothes and she wanted store-bought.
Nothing wrong
So
with that.
here I am, you know, at the Henderson, you know, 50 years old and learning
Knocking
how
it
to
out.
quilt. And I did. I've made 3 quilts, and then I have 2 upstairs that need finished. And just wonderful teachers. So I have volunteers that come in. Karen Chamberlain's one. She was a home economics teacher with the
Wow, that's
the
perfect.
and she just has owned the quilt room. I mean, she is responsible for putting up the felt panels. The Quilt Guild meets here every month. And then she has open quilting on Tuesday. She doesn't teach it, but she's there to help people that might need help piecing something together or trying to figure out a backing or whatever. But, you know, this community, and which is so wonderful that you're focusing on Appalachia,
Yeah.
this community does not know how wonderful it is.
No.
I have lived other places and I have never, this was home, and they embrace each other, they help each other.
They do.
There is nothing like it. And I've lived in Europe, I've lived in big cities, small towns, but to be here is just absolutely, and everybody owns this building. It's a community building.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it. You know, we have, you know, Kathy up volunteering with stained glass because that's what she does.
Wow.
And, you know, I do watercolor on Saturday mornings, and then letterpress. Cheryl, that does pottery, Cheryl Bess, she comes over and, you know, they just spend their time volunteering. I mean, they get a little money for teaching, but you can't live off of it.
This all makes you so happy.
Oh yeah, it's the passion.
I mean, no wonder they call you that.
Yeah,
I mean, you probably don't even have to drink coffee in the morning. Do you?
it helps.
Yeah, but
Especially
still,
these days. It is. I mean, this whole place is a culmination of my life and everything that I've learned. I was
Yeah.
very fortunate because I had my mom. There were 5 of us. She was a stay-home mom. she did everything from wallpaper to upholstering. She'd upholster their own furniture, and the neighbors to make extra money, and she would get these craft of the month club things in the mail that I couldn't do it. I'd get so excited though. I mean, I still remember like going to the mailbox and bringing it in.
Wow, look at this.
But she would let me stay up past bedtime to watch her do it.
Well,
and as long
obviously
as
showed some oomph about this kind of thing.
And they did both. She and my grandmother did ceramics. I mean, everybody in the 60s did ceramics, but so I just had all of this eclectic experiences my whole life that just all came in together. I mean, even when I married, I married a shop teacher, so it's like, okay, I've learned a little bit about that.
All this has built the Catherine we see now.
It is, and it's so. I remember when I applied for this job, they had advertised for it, I think twice, and nothing came through. And then there was a friend of mine from Marion, Dean Barr, who has Barr Photographics, and he had talked me into doing a show of my watercolors. And I was like, you know what, I've never done a show. Why not? Then he looked at my bio and he said, oh my God, they're over in Marion, they're building this school, and he goes, I swear, Kat, they must have written the job description based on your bio. And I was like, they probably already hired the cousin of the mayor. I'm done looking for jobs. I am just, let me drive my Medicaid cab, which is what I did. Because I was overqualified for everything, coming down here from Notre Dame, and
I'm telling you,
it was like, forget it. So he's like, no, I know Ken Heath. He's not like that. I'm like, okay, send it in.
Ken always looks for what's best.
I got a rejection within 24 hours.
Wow.
And for the first time in my life, Rick, I got mad.
That's good, though.
Because I knew this was where my life was going to be. I knew it. I knew everything had, I mean, I knew it here.
Exactly.
I just knew it. And so I came over, and the first person I ran into was Mayor Helms. God rest his soul, he just passed away.
He did.
And I introduced myself and I said, my name is Catherine Schrenker, and I'm going to be your new schoolhouse director. And he goes, oh, really? And I said, as soon as you point me to Ken Heath's office, and I can go tell him he's making a big mistake. And the mayor's like, well, I'd kind of like to see that. And I'm like, you are welcome to come along.
Oh, my gosh.
And I went in.
Be a fly on the wall.
I went in, and I shook his hand, and I said, introduced myself, and I said, you are making a big mistake. I said, I can turn that school into something you've never even dreamed could happen. And I said, and it's not about the money, because I know you looked and thought we can't afford her, and it's not about this being a stair-step job on to bigger, better things, because I go, I'm going to own this. This is mine. And then within a day, they brought me in for an interview and hired me. And the one question was,
Y'all want to hear this?
what do you consider other duties as assigned? And I'm like, other duties as assigned? And I go, well, I've pulled dead squirrels out of toilets, and which I knew they weren't expecting that
She
answer.
does a little stand-up comedy on the side, too.
I know, that's it. I go, if something needs done and I can do it, I said, I'll do it. I understand. I go, I can do anything.
Thanks for riding shotgun with us this week on My Appalachian Home. Remember, life is what you make of it. We'll see you soon.